Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Father George Cerniglia. I am a Marianist priest, rector of the university. Today, we are having an interview with one of the founding fathers of the university, Father Stephen Tutas. So we'll begin by welcoming Father Steve, and maybe, Father, you could say a little bit about how you came to be here at Chaminade in the first place, a little bit about your Marianist history.
We had to go back to 1947. I first came to Hawaii as a brother of Mary to teach at St. Louis College. Well, St. Louis College was a 12-year institution. We had a full grade school, the 8 years, and then the large high school. It was all called St. Louis College. And all we did in 1955 was extend 2 more years of schooling for men.
And that became St. Louis?
It was called St. Louis Junior College, and that was not obviously a happy choice of name, but it took us a couple of years to reverse all that. Once we got involved in the actual running of the college, we got it to change it to a 4-year liberal arts college for men and women. It was interrupted, of course, by the war years, so it never got realization until after the war was over and things were somewhat stabilized. This was a big military hospital during the war.
So we know that the brothers were here and the school was here during the bombing of Pearl Harbor. What kind of stories did you hear when you came here?
Most of them were true, but the main thing is this campus had 200 buildings on it. Put up by the government for the military as a big hospital. And during those years, when it was a hospital, the brothers were under the government payroll, but they taught at McKinley High School.
So, Father Steve, could you tell us something about the founding Marianists of St. Louis Junior College?
They selected 5 of us. Father Bob Mackey was the first president, and he stayed as president a long time. Father John McCluskey was chosen as the dean of the new institution. Father Joe Becker was an English professor brought in. Brother Henry Honnert also came in to teach math, science. I was in, I guess, as a chaplain, teacher of theology. I also taught French and psychology. I was the assistant janitor.
The assistant janitor?
Yeah, because the president was the main janitor and I was just one of those. We did a lot of physical work besides it was an enjoyable time. But that was the group that began the Chaminade.
How is it that you wound up in the president's office for a period of time?
Thank you. I was called to be the acting president when Father Mackey, who was the president, had things in place and went off back to Fordham to complete his doctorate. So I was the acting president at that time.
So, Father Steve, life on the campus in your time was a little bit different than it is today. But what do you remember about the students of those days, about the activities on the campus, about the life that was here on the campus at that time?
That's a very good question about life on the campus in the 1950s. It was very simple. We didn't have many facilities.
Any extracurricular activities? A yearbook or newspaper?
Yeah, that developed. I'm not sure if it developed that early. It was relatively simple.
Strictly academic?
Well, that's a little bit, you know, but it was focused on learning, you're right. The library was very primitive, you know, everything was building.
You've been a part of Chaminade Chaminade University since the beginning, and we're grateful for your reflections. Would you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us about the future, or anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak to the new generation of students. And I'm just happy you have the opportunity to be here on this campus. I think the key idea to keep in mind is growth. What can you, how use the opportunities to grow all your life, but you begin this a new phase in your growth during your years here. And growth, I think, is always identified in terms of service, not in terms of your own personal worth, but in a way in which you can make a greater contribution to society, to others. I always tell people to look back with gratitude, to look forward with hope, and in that spirit of thanksgiving for the past, your past experience, and confidence, because of your spirit of hope, you live fully in the present. The only thing that counts is how you live here and now. And it's the only grace that's offered to us is the present moment. Yes, that I think is a very basic message.
For those of you watching this interview, Father Steve is celebrating 70 years of religious profession this year. And so we're grateful for your part in our history and for your continued support for Chaminade now and in the future.
Yes, thank you. It's always good to be here. Thank you.